I never thought my life would depend on trusting my gut about a plate of scrambled eggs. But here I am, alive to tell you the story, while my husband rots in a prison cell for trying to murder me. Let me take you back to the morning that changed everything. The morning I should have died. My name is Victoria Morgan, and for 5 years, I lived what everyone thought was a fairy tale. Married to Marcus Morgan, tech billionaire, philanthropist, the man who graced the covers of Forbes and Fortune magazines. We had the penthouse overlooking the city, the vacation homes, the charity galas, the perfect life that people envied from the outside. But as I learned that terrible morning, sometimes the most beautiful facades hide the darkest intentions. Started like any other Wednesday. I woke up around 6:30 in our bedroom, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Manhattan. Marcus's side of the bed was already empty, which wasn't unusual. He was always an early riser, usually at the gym by 5 a.m., back by 7 to shower and head to his office. We had a routine, a comfortable, predictable routine that I'd grown accustomed to over 5 years of marriage. But that morning, something was different. I heard noise coming from the kitchen, actual cooking sounds, pans clattering, the refrigerator opening and closing, the coffee maker brewing. This was strange because Marcus never cooked. In 5 years of marriage, I could count on one hand the number of times I'd seen him prepare anything more complicated than toast. We had a private chef who prepared our meals, a housekeeper who managed the household, and Marcus's contribution to breakfast was usually just pouring himself a cup of coffee before heading out. So when my bedroom door opened and Marcus walked in carrying a large breakfast tray, I was already confused. He was wearing his workout clothes, which meant he'd been to the gym, but his face was flushed and he was smiling in a way that seemed forced. Too wide, too bright, like he was performing happiness rather than feeling it. "Good morning, beautiful," he said, setting the tray down on the bed beside me. "I made you breakfast." I stared at the tray. It was elaborate. Scrambled eggs with herbs, whole wheat toast with butter, fresh fruit arranged artfully in a bowl, orange juice in a crystal glass, and a cappuccino with a perfect heart design in the foam. It looked like something from a 5-star hotel, not something my husband, who couldn't cook, had prepared. "You made this?" I asked, unable to hide my surprise. "I did," he said, still with that unnaturally bright smile. "I watched a cooking tutorial online. Wanted to do something special for my amazing wife. It was a sweet gesture. It should have melted my heart. But instead, I felt a cold prickle of unease run down my spine. Marcus wasn't sentimental like this. He showed love through expensive gifts and lavish vacations, not through acts of service like cooking breakfast. And there was something in his eyes, something I couldn't quite identify. Was it nervousness? Guilt? Fear? "This is so thoughtful," I said carefully, looking at the food. "But you didn't have to go to all this trouble." "No trouble at all," he said quickly. "Too quickly. I wanted to. Please eat it while it's hot. I made it exactly how you like it." He stood there watching me expectantly. His phone kept buzzing in his pocket, but he ignored it, which was also unusual. Marcus always answered his phone. Business never stopped for Marcus Morgan. I reached for the cappuccino first, bringing it to my lips. That's when I smelled it. Just a hint, barely noticeable beneath the coffee aroma, but unmistakable to someone who'd lived with a severe allergy their entire life. Almonds. My blood turned to ice. I'm deathly allergic to almonds. Not just mildly allergic. I carry an EpiPen everywhere I go, kind of allergic. One bite of anything with almond extract and my throat closes up within minutes. Marcus knew this. He'd seen me have a reaction once, early in our relationship, when a restaurant accidentally used almond oil in a dish. He'd rushed me to the emergency room, held my hand while the doctors administered epinephrine, promised he'd always keep me safe. So why did my coffee smell like almonds? "Is something wrong?" Marcus asked, and I could hear the tension in his voice. I looked up at him, my mind racing. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe my allergies were making me paranoid. But that feeling in my gut, that primal instinct that something was very wrong, it was screaming at me. "I need to use the bathroom first," I said, setting the cappuccino down carefully. You know I can't eat first thing without washing my face and brushing my teeth. Give me just a minute. I saw something flicker across his face. Disappointment? Frustration? It was gone in an instant, replaced by that forced smile again. Of course, darling. But don't take too long. I want you to eat it while it's fresh. I walked to the bathroom on legs that felt shaky, closed the door, and leaned against it. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I was probably being crazy, paranoid. This was my husband, the man I'd loved and trusted for 5 years. Why would he hurt me? But I couldn't shake that smell, and I couldn't shake the look in his eyes. I made a decision. I wrapped the toast in tissue paper and tucked it in the bathroom cabinet. Then I carefully poured half the cappuccino down the sink, diluting it with water to make it look like I'd drunk some. I used a spoon to mess up the eggs, making it look like I'd eaten a few bites. Then I flushed the toilet, washed my hands, and went back out. Marcus was standing exactly where I'd left him, staring at the breakfast tray like it was a bomb about to explode. "Feeling better?" he asked. "Much better," I lied. "You know what? I just remembered Jennifer is coming in early this morning for that urgent meeting you scheduled. She probably hasn't had breakfast. Why don't we share this with her? There's so much food here." Marcus's face went pale. "No, this is for you. I made it specifically for you." "But there's too much," I insisted, picking up the tray. "And you know how hard Jennifer works. She's always here early, staying late. Let's be nice to her." "Victoria, wait." But I was already walking out of the bedroom, carrying the tray, my heart hammering against my ribs. I had to know. I had to know if I was crazy or if my instincts were right. Jennifer Price was already in Marcus's home office, setting up for their 9 a.m. meeting. She was 28, efficient, loyal, and had been Marcus's executive assistant for 3 years. She was also someone I considered a friend, as much as you can be friends with your husband's employee. "Jennifer," I called out, walking into the office with the tray. "Good morning." Marcus made way too much breakfast and I couldn't possibly eat all of this. "Would you like some?" Jennifer looked up from her laptop, surprised. "Oh, Mrs. Morgan, that's so kind, but I already had." "I insist," I said, setting the tray down on the desk in front of her. "Please, it would make me feel better knowing someone's enjoying it." Marcus went to all this trouble. I saw Marcus appear in the doorway behind me, his face a mask of barely controlled panic. "Jennifer, you don't have to," he started. "Are you kidding? This looks amazing," Jennifer said, already picking up the fork. "Thank you so much, Mrs. Morgan. I was running late this morning and skipped breakfast." She took a bite of the eggs, then a sip of the cappuccino. She smiled appreciatively. "Mr. Morgan, I didn't know you could cook like this. These eggs are delicious." I watched Marcus's face. He'd gone from pale to gray, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. He looked like he was going to be sick. "I'm glad you like them," he managed to say, his voice strained. I sat down in one of the office chairs, pretending to be relaxed, but every nerve in my body was on high alert. If I was wrong, if I was just being paranoid, then nothing would happen. Jennifer would eat the breakfast, feel fine, and I'd feel like a fool for suspecting my husband of something so unthinkable. But if I was right, Marcus kept glancing at his watch, then at Jennifer, then at me. His phone was buzzing constantly now, and he finally pulled it out, looking at the screen. His jaw tightened. "I need to take this," he said abruptly, walking out of the office. Jennifer continued eating, telling me about the meeting agenda, completely unaware of the terror growing in my chest. I made polite conversation, watching the clock. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes. 15. Then Jennifer's face changed. "Mrs. Morgan," she said slowly, setting down her fork. "I don't feel very well." "What's wrong?" I asked, already standing up. "I feel dizzy. And my stomach." She pressed a hand to her abdomen. "Something's not right." Her breathing became labored. Her face was turning red, then almost purple. She tried to stand up and collapsed back into the chair. "I can't breathe," she gasped. "Marcus," I screamed, running to Jennifer's side. "Call 911. Now!" Marcus came running back into the office, and when he saw Jennifer struggling to breathe, his face went completely white. Not with concern, with absolute terror. "What happened?" he asked, but he wasn't looking at Jennifer. He was looking at the breakfast tray. "She can't breathe. Call an ambulance." I was already grabbing my phone, dialing 911 myself. The next 20 minutes were chaos. The 911 operator talked me through keeping Jennifer conscious while we waited for the ambulance. Marcus stood frozen in the corner of the room, staring at Jennifer like he was watching his entire life collapse before his eyes. When the paramedics arrived, they immediately administered epinephrine, recognizing the signs of anaphylactic shock. "Does she have any known allergies?" one of the EMTs asked. "Not that I know of," I said. "What did she eat this morning?" I pointed to the breakfast tray. Scrambled eggs, toast, fruit, coffee. "My husband made it." The EMT looked at Marcus. "Sir, did you use any nut products in this food? Any almond extract, almond milk, anything like that?" Marcus opened his mouth, closed it. He looked like a trapped animal. I might have used almond milk in the cappuccino," he finally said. "I didn't know she was allergic." "The coffee smelled like almond extract to me," I said quietly. "Not almond milk. Extract." The EMT's eyes sharpened. He carefully bagged the remaining food as evidence while his partner loaded Jennifer onto a stretcher. "We're taking her to Mount Sinai," the EMT said. "Someone should come with us to provide information." "I'll come," I said immediately. "I'll drive separately," Marcus said quickly. Too quickly. "I need to make some calls. Let her family know." In the ambulance, watching Jennifer struggle to breathe even with oxygen, I knew with absolute certainty what had happened. That breakfast had been meant for me. Marcus had put almond extract in my coffee, knowing it would trigger a fatal allergic reaction. And Jennifer, innocent Jennifer who'd only been trying to do her job, had eaten it instead. My husband had tried to murder me. At the hospital, while doctors worked on Jennifer, I sat in the waiting room trying to process the impossible. Marcus arrived 30 minutes later, his lawyer in tow, which told me everything I needed to know. Innocent people don't bring lawyers to the hospital when their employee has a medical emergency. A police detective arrived shortly after. Her name was Sarah Chun, and she had sharp, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. "Mrs. Morgan," she said, sitting down beside me, "I need to ask you some questions about this morning." "Of course," I said. "The breakfast that Miss Price ate. It was made for you, correct?" I nodded. "And your husband knew about your almond allergy?" "He's known since we started dating. I've had a severe reaction in front of him before. He knows I carry an EpiPen everywhere." Detective Chun wrote something in her notebook. "Why did you give your breakfast to Miss Price?" This was the moment. I could lie, could try to protect Marcus, could pretend I hadn't suspected anything. But Jennifer was fighting for her life in the next room because of food that should have killed me. "Because something felt wrong," I said quietly. "The way Marcus was acting, the way he insisted I eat it immediately, and I smelled almond in the coffee. I'm so sensitive to it that I can detect even trace amounts. So I pretended to eat some, then gave it to Jennifer." Detective Chun looked at me for a long moment. "You suspected your husband was trying to harm you." I didn't want to believe it, but yes, my instincts told me something was very wrong. "Mrs. Morgan, I'm going to be honest with you." The EMTs flagged this as suspicious. The amount of almond extract in that coffee was enough to kill someone with a severe allergy. This wasn't an accident or cross-contamination. This was intentional. The words hung in the air between us. Intentional. Murder. My husband had intentionally tried to murder me. "I need to ask you something," Detective Chun continued. "Has your husband done anything else recently that seemed unusual? Any sudden changes in behavior, financial discussions, insurance policies?" And that's when it all clicked into place. The puzzle pieces I'd been ignoring for months suddenly formed a horrifying picture. "He updated my life insurance 3 months ago," I said slowly. "Increased it to $50 million. He said it was smart financial planning given our net worth. And the beneficiary? Him. Just him. Any other financial changes? He had me sign a new will and some documents about my family trust. He said it was routine estate planning, but I pressed my hands to my face. Oh my God. He's been planning this for months. Detective Chen's expression was grim. Mrs. Morgan, I'm going to need you to be very careful. If your husband realizes his plan failed and that you're suspicious, you could be in danger. What should I do? For now, act like you suspect nothing. Let him think you believe this was a tragic accident. Meanwhile, I'm going to get a warrant for his phone records, financial records, everything. If he's planning to murder you for money, there will be evidence. Over the next few hours, while Jennifer stabilized in the ICU, I sat with Marcus in the waiting room and watched him perform the role of concerned husband and employer. He held my hand. He paced nervously. He made phone calls to Jennifer's family. But I could see the fear in his eyes every time he looked at me. He was terrified that I suspected. Terrified that his plan had failed. I can't believe I used almond milk, he kept saying. I'm so stupid. I should have been more careful. I almost killed her. It was an accident, I said, playing my part. You didn't know she was allergic. Still, I feel terrible. Absolutely terrible. I bet he did. Just not for the reasons he was pretending. My best friend Maya arrived at the hospital around noon. Maya Patel was an estate lawyer, brilliant and fierce, and she'd been my best friend since college. I'd called her from the hospital bathroom, told her everything in a whispered, frantic conversation. She pulled me aside the moment she arrived. Victoria, I need to tell you something about your prenup, she said quietly. Something I discovered when I was reviewing your estate documents last month. What about it? If you divorce Marcus, he gets nothing. The prenup is ironclad. All assets stay with whoever brought them into the marriage. Your family trust, your inheritance, everything remains yours. I know that. We signed it before the wedding. But if you die while married to him, he inherits everything. The life insurance, your trust, your company shares. Everything. We're talking about over $200 million. The number hit me like a physical blow. 200 million reasons for Marcus to want me dead. There's more, Maya continued. I did some digging after you called. Marcus's company is in trouble. Serious trouble. He's been hiding it well, but they're months away from bankruptcy. He's leveraged everything, including using your trust as collateral for loans without your knowledge. How is that possible? I never signed anything. He forged your signature. I found the documents. Victoria, if his company goes under, he'll lose everything and still owe tens of millions. Unless I die and he inherits my money to cover his debts. Exactly. I felt sick. My husband hadn't just tried to kill me on impulse. This was premeditated, calculated, planned down to the last detail. He'd spent months setting it up, positioning himself to inherit my fortune, all while pretending to love me. There's one more thing, Maya said, pulling out her phone. I hired a private investigator last month when some of your financial documents didn't add up. He found something. She showed me photos on her phone. Marcus with a woman I'd never seen before. They were at restaurants, hotels, walking hand in hand through parks. The photos were dated over the past 3 years. Her name is Claudia Reeves, Maya said. She's been Marcus's mistress for 3 years. She's also his so-called business partner in several ventures. Ventures funded by your trust distributions. I stared at the photos. The woman was beautiful, younger than me, with long dark hair and a calculating smile. In one photo, she was wearing a diamond bracelet I recognized, because it matched the one Marcus had given me for our anniversary. He'd bought matching jewelry for his wife and his mistress. I'm going to destroy him, I said quietly. First, we need to keep you alive, Maya replied. Detective Chun called me. She has a plan. The plan was audacious and terrifying. I would fake my death. Let Marcus think his murder attempt had worked, just delayed by a few days. They'd claim I'd had a delayed allergic reaction, that my system had been compromised by trace amounts of almond that built up over time. It was medically plausible enough to be believable. But first, they needed to catch Marcus and Claudia in the act of celebrating. They needed confessions, recorded evidence, proof of premeditation. Jennifer woke up 2 days later. The doctor said she'd make a full recovery, though it had been close. When I visited her in the hospital, she grabbed my hand with tears in her eyes. "Mrs. Morgan, that breakfast was meant for you, wasn't it? I didn't insult her intelligence by lying." "Yes. He tried to kill you." "Yes. I ate your poisoned breakfast." She started laughing, a slightly hysterical sound. "I literally ate your attempted murder, and you survived. You're stronger than both of us thought. What are you going to do?" I told her the plan, everything, and Jennifer, brave, loyal Jennifer, agreed to help. "He almost killed me because I was in the wrong place at the wrong time," she said. "I want to see him pay for that. I want to see him pay for trying to murder his wife." The plan went into motion 3 days later. The hospital released a statement that I'd been admitted with complications from a severe allergic reaction. My condition was listed as critical. Marcus played the devoted husband, staying at the hospital, holding vigil outside my supposed ICU room. Detective Chun had already obtained warrants and discovered a treasure trove of evidence. Marcus's phone records showed months of calls and texts with Claudia, discussing the plan and being free soon. His computer had searches for untraceable poisons, allergic reaction symptoms, and how to inherit a spouse's trust fund. His recent meeting with a doctor had been recorded, Marcus asking about antihistamine blockers that would make an allergic reaction impossible to treat. They had everything, but Detective Chun wanted more. She wanted Marcus and Claudia caught in the act of celebrating my death, confessing to murder where it couldn't be denied or explained away. So they staged my death. The hospital released a statement 5 days after Jennifer's poisoning. Victoria Morgan, beloved wife of tech billionaire Marcus Morgan, had passed away from complications of a severe allergic reaction. The funeral would be private, family only. I watched Marcus receive the news via the security cameras Detective Chun had installed in our penthouse. He was alone when the hospital called. For just a moment, when he thought no one could see, his face transformed. Not into grief, into pure, triumphant relief. Then he composed himself and called Claudia. "She's gone," he said. "It's finally done. Are you sure?" Claudia's voice was sharp with excitement. "This isn't another mistake like with the secretary? She's dead." The hospital confirmed it. Delayed allergic reaction, just like we planned. "So when do you get the money?" The lawyers said the will goes through probate, but with her death certificate and me as sole beneficiary, I'll have access to emergency funds within days. Everything else within months. Months? "Marcus, your company's going under in weeks. The insurance money will come through first. 50 million. That'll cover the immediate debts." I was watching this conversation from Detective Chen's surveillance van, parked 2 blocks from my own home, listening to my husband celebrate my death while discussing how to spend my money. I felt cold. Completely, utterly cold. "We need to have them confess to the actual murder," Detective Chen said. "The planning is good, but we need them to explicitly discuss poisoning you." "The funeral," I said. "Stage a funeral. They'll think they're safe, that they got away with it. That's when people get careless." So they staged a funeral. A beautiful, expensive funeral at Marcus's favorite venue, with flowers and music and a closed casket because my body was too damaged from the allergic reaction for viewing. It was grotesque, planning my own funeral, watching my husband play the grieving widower for cameras and guests. But it was necessary. That night, after the funeral, Marcus and Claudia met at our penthouse. They thought they were alone. They thought they were safe. They had no idea that every room had been wired with cameras and microphones, that police were stationed outside, that I was watching from the surveillance van. They popped champagne. "To freedom," Claudia said, raising her glass. "To fortune," Marcus added, clinking his glass against hers. They drank, they laughed, and then they talked. Oh, how they talked. "I can't believe you actually went through with it," Claudia said, sprawling on my couch in my home. "For a while, I thought you were too weak. I had no choice. Marcus replied. The company's underwater. I owe people money I don't have. Victoria's trust was the only way out. That secretary almost ruined everything. Jennifer. Yeah, that was bad luck. But it worked out. Made it look even more like an accident when Victoria died a few days later. Tell me again how you did it. Claudia's voice was eager, hungry. I want to hear every detail. And Marcus, drunk on champagne and the belief that he'd gotten away with murder, told her everything. He described researching poisons for months. How almond extract was perfect because everyone knew about my allergy. It would look like a tragic accident. He'd practiced making breakfast for weeks in their secret apartment, timing it perfectly. He'd gotten antihistamine blockers from a doctor he'd bribed, crushing them into my vitamins over the past month, so that if I did accidentally ingest almonds, my EpiPen wouldn't work. The breakfast that morning was supposed to be foolproof, he said. Almond extract in the coffee, crushed almonds in the eggs disguised by the herbs, even almond oil on the toast. Enough to trigger anaphylaxis within minutes. By the time anyone realized what was happening, she'd be dead. But Jennifer ate it instead. That was Victoria being suspicious. She knew something was wrong. I saw it in her eyes. But it didn't matter because she'd been taking the antihistamine blockers in her vitamins for a month. Even if she didn't eat the breakfast that morning, the next allergic reaction she had to anything would be fatal. I felt Detective Chen's hand on my shoulder, steadying me. Hearing my husband describe how he'd been slowly poisoning me for a month, setting me up for death, was almost too much to bear. And now? Claudia asked. Now we wait for the money to clear, and then we get married. You'll be Mrs. Marcus Morgan. Isn't that what you always wanted? Claudia laughed. Actually, I was thinking we wouldn't get married quite yet. What do you mean? She pulled papers out of her purse. I mean these divorce papers. You sign them, give me half of Victoria's money, and we can both go our separate ways. Marcus's face went slack with shock. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that I did all the work here. I found the poison method. I got you the doctor. I planned every detail. And now you think you're just going to keep all the money and I'll be grateful for whatever scraps you throw me. Claudia, we're partners. We're in love. We're partners in murder, Marcus. Love has nothing to do with it. Sign the papers, or I go to the police and tell them you acted alone. You can't do that. You're just as guilty as I am. Am I? Because I made sure all the text messages between us are vague enough to be interpreted differently. I made sure I have an alibi for every crucial moment. You're the one who made the breakfast. You're the one who administered the poisons. I'm just your girlfriend who didn't know what you were doing. Marcus stood up, his face dark with rage. You manipulative bitch. You played me. I learned from the best. Claudia smiled coldly. Sign the papers, Marcus, or join me in prison. That's when Detective Chen gave the signal. Police burst through the penthouse doors from 3 different entrances. Marcus and Claudia froze, champagne glasses still in hand, divorce papers scattered on the coffee table. Police! Hands where we can see them. I watched through the cameras as they were both handcuffed, as Detective Chen read them their rights, as the reality of their situation crashed down on them. Marcus was screaming that it was all Claudia's fault, that she'd forced him into it. Claudia was screaming that Marcus was lying, that she'd known nothing. But it didn't matter, because every word they'd spoken that night had been recorded. Every confession, every detail, every damning statement. Detective Chen looked directly at one of the hidden cameras. Mrs. Morgan, I think you can come up now. I rode the elevator up to the penthouse, my hands shaking. When I walked through the door, into my own home, Marcus saw me and literally stumbled backward. Victoria, he whispered. But you're... The hospital said. Said what, Marcus? That I was dead. I walked closer, and he shrank away from me. I'm very much alive. No thanks to you. This is a mistake. I can explain. Explain what? How you spent months planning my murder. How you poisoned my vitamins. How you made me breakfast laced with enough almond extract to kill me. How you celebrated my death with your mistress while planning how to spend my money. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, then crumpled to the floor, his face in his hands. Claudia was more composed. "I want a lawyer." "You'll get one," Detective Chin said. "You'll both get lawyers. And then you'll both get tried for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and about a dozen other charges." As they were led away in handcuffs, Marcus looked back at me one last time. "I did love you once," he said quietly. "No, Marcus. You loved my money. You never loved me." The trial was a media sensation. Billionaire tech CEO Marcus Morgan and his mistress Claudia Reeves on trial for attempted murder. The evidence was overwhelming. The recordings, the phone records, the financial documents, Jennifer's testimony, and my own account of that terrible morning. Marcus tried every defense his expensive lawyers could think of. Temporary insanity, coercion by Claudia, mental breakdown from business stress. Nothing worked. The jury saw through every lie. The prosecution painted a picture of a man who'd married for money, lived off his wife's fortune while running his company into the ground, then plotted to murder her when divorce would leave him with nothing. They showed how he'd manipulated and poisoned me for months, how he'd coldly planned every detail, how he'd shown no remorse even when an innocent woman nearly died in my place. Claudia's defense was that she'd been manipulated by Marcus, that she hadn't known about the murder plot. But the recordings proved otherwise. She'd been an active participant, encouraging Marcus, planning with him, celebrating with him. Jennifer gave testimony that brought the courtroom to tears. She described eating the breakfast meant for me, collapsing, feeling her throat close up, thinking she was going to die. She described waking up in the hospital and realizing she'd survived my attempted murder. "I ate poisoned eggs meant for my boss," she said. "I drank coffee laced with almond extract meant to kill Mrs. Morgan. And the man who made that breakfast, the man who tried to murder his wife, stood there and watched me collapse without calling for help until she screamed at him to do it. That's not a man who made a mistake. That's a man who's capable of murder." When it was my turn to testify, I walked into that courtroom with my head held high. I told them everything. The morning Marcus made breakfast, the smell of almonds in my coffee, the instinct that saved my life, the months of evidence we'd uncovered showing his systematic planning. Marcus's lawyer tried to paint me as paranoid, as someone who'd overreacted to a loving gesture. "Mrs. Morgan, isn't it possible that your husband was simply trying to do something nice for you and accidentally used an ingredient you're allergic to?" "No," I said firmly, because Marcus had been crushing antihistamine blockers into my daily vitamins for over a month, specifically to ensure that my next allergic reaction would be fatal. That's not an accident. That's premeditated murder. The defense had no response to that. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Both of them. Marcus was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Claudia got 25. Neither would be eligible for parole for at least 15 years. As the judge read the sentence, Marcus turned to look at me one last time. I stared back at him, this man I'd loved and trusted, this man who tried to kill me for money. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no regret. Just a cold, satisfied sense of justice. This case represents one of the most calculating and callous attempts at murder for financial gain that this court has seen, the judge said. "Mr. Morgan, you married your wife not out of love, but as a long-term investment. When that investment stopped serving your needs, you decided to cash out through murder. You poisoned her systematically, planned her death meticulously, and showed no remorse when an innocent woman nearly died in her place. The sentence of 30 years reflects the severity and premeditation of your crimes." He turned to Claudia. "Ms. Reeves, you were not a passive participant in this scheme. You encouraged, planned, and celebrated an attempted murder. Your callousness in discussing the details of how Mrs. Morgan was poisoned shows a complete lack of human empathy. You treated murder as a business transaction. Your sentence reflects your culpability." After the trial, after Marcus and Claudia were led away to begin their sentences, I stood on the courthouse steps with Maya, Jennifer, and Detective Chun. "How do you feel?" Maya asked me. "Free," I said. "For the first time in 5 years, I feel completely free. 6 months later, I sold the penthouse. Too many bad memories. I bought a smaller, more modern apartment with a kitchen I could actually see into from every angle. No more blind spots, no more hidden dangers. I took over full control of my family trust and my investments. Marcus had left the company in shambles, but I worked with the board to restructure everything. Some ventures we salvaged. Others we let fail. It wasn't about the money anymore. I had plenty of that. It was about building something honest and real. Jennifer became my chief operating officer. After what we'd been through together, after she'd literally survived eating my attempted murder, we were bonded for life. She was brilliant, loyal, and had a dark sense of humor about the whole situation. "I have the most unique qualification on my resume," she joked once. "Survived attempted murder by proxy. Definitely makes me stand out in job interviews." We started a foundation together, advocating for poison victims and supporting research into allergic reactions. Felt right, turning something so terrible into something that could help others. I also started cooking, really cooking. At first, it was terrifying. Every ingredient felt dangerous. Every meal felt like a potential weapon. But slowly, with therapy and time, I learned to trust food again. To trust my own instincts. To trust that not every breakfast would kill me. One morning, about 8 months after the trial, I was making myself scrambled eggs when my doorbell rang. I almost didn't answer it. Old habits die hard, and I was still cautious about unexpected visitors. But when I checked the security camera, I saw Maya standing there with coffee and pastries from my favorite bakery. "I brought breakfast," she called out, knowing I could hear her through the intercom. "Don't worry, I checked every ingredient. No almonds anywhere near these pastries." I laughed and let her in. We sat on my new balcony, eating breakfast and watching the city wake up. "You seem happy," Maya observed. "I am happy. It's strange. Marcus tried to kill me, and somehow I ended up with a better life than I had before." "That's because you were already living half a life with him. He was slowly poisoning you in more ways than one. The almond extract was just the most literal version." She was right. Marcus had been poisoning my life for years, with lies, with deception, with the slow erosion of trust. The breakfast that morning had just been the final, fatal dose he'd planned. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd eaten that breakfast?" Maya asked quietly. "Every day. I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't trusted my instincts. If I'd ignored that smell, dismissed my unease, eaten the food to please my husband. I'd be dead, and Marcus would have gotten away with it. But you didn't. You trusted yourself. I almost didn't. I almost talked myself out of it. Told myself I was being paranoid, that I was imagining things. The only reason I'm alive is because I listened to that voice in my head screaming that something was wrong." We sat in silence for a moment, contemplating how differently that morning could have ended. "Jennifer told me she's getting married," Maya said, changing the subject to something happier. "I know. She showed me the ring. I'm so happy for her. She said she's going to have you walk her down the aisle since her father passed away." I felt tears prick my eyes. "She asked me last week." I cried for an hour. "You saved her life, Victoria. You gave her your poison breakfast and saved her life. We saved each other. If she hadn't eaten it, if she hadn't gotten sick, we wouldn't have had proof. Marcus would have tried again, and eventually he would have succeeded." My phone buzzed with a message. It was from Detective Chun. "Thought you'd want to know. Marcus's appeal was denied. He's staying in prison for the full sentence." I showed Maya the message. She raised her coffee cup in a toast. "To justice," she said. "To trusting your instincts," I replied. We clinked our cups together, and I took a sip of my coffee. It was perfect. No almond smell. No hidden dangers. Just good coffee shared with a friend who'd stood by me through the worst period of my life. Later that day, I had lunch with Jennifer at a small cafe near my office. She was glowing with happiness, talking about wedding plans and her new life. "I never thought I'd be grateful for almost dying," she said. "But if it hadn't happened, you might not be here. Marcus would have tried again, and next time you might not have been suspicious. I think about that a lot. How one moment of intuition saved both our lives." "What made you suspicious?" Jennifer asked. Was it just the smell? I thought about it. It was everything. The way Marcus was acting, the forced smile, the insistence that I eat immediately, the fact that he'd never cooked for me before, the phone calls he kept ignoring. It was like my subconscious was adding up all these tiny red flags before my conscious mind caught up. Trust your gut. Literally, my gut saved my life. We laughed, the kind of dark humor that comes from surviving something terrible together. Mrs. Morgan, Victoria, can I ask you something? Jennifer's tone became more serious. Of course. Do you think Marcus ever really loved you? Even in the beginning, I'd asked myself that question 1,000 times. I think he loved the idea of me, or more accurately, he loved what I represented: wealth, status, security. But love me as a person? Care about who I was beyond what I could provide? No, I don't think he was capable of that kind of love. That's sad. It is, but it's also liberating, because it means nothing I did or didn't do could have changed anything. This was always who he was. I just didn't see it until he literally tried to kill me. As I walked home that evening, I passed the building where Marcus's company used to be headquartered. It was under new management now, restructured and renamed. Marcus's name had been removed from everything: the building, the company literature, the industry awards. It was like he'd been erased from the business world entirely. Good, I thought. Let him be forgotten. That night, I cooked dinner for myself. Nothing fancy, just pasta with vegetables and a simple salad. But I made it myself in my own kitchen, with ingredients I'd chosen and prepared. Felt like an act of reclamation, taking back control over something as basic and essential as feeding myself. As I ate, I thought about that morning 8 months ago. The morning I should have died. The morning that changed everything. People ask me if I regret marrying Marcus. If I wish I'd seen the signs earlier, protected myself better, been more cautious. The truth is, I don't regret it, because that experience, as horrific as it was, taught me something crucial. Trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, it probably is. When someone's behavior doesn't match their words, believe the behavior. When that voice in your head whispers that you're in danger, listen to it. My instincts saved my life. That uncomfortable feeling when Marcus brought me breakfast, the one I almost ignored, the one I almost talked myself out of, that saved my life, Jennifer's life, and prevented Marcus from getting away with murder. A year after the trial, I was invited to speak at a conference about financial abuse and domestic violence. Standing on that stage, looking out at hundreds of people, I told my story. Not for sympathy or attention, but because I wanted other people to understand that abuse doesn't always look like bruises and broken bones. Sometimes it looks like a husband making you breakfast. Sometimes it looks like love and care and thoughtfulness. Until it kills you. If something feels wrong, I told the audience, it probably is. If someone's behavior makes you uncomfortable, even if you can't articulate why, trust that feeling. Your instincts exist to protect you. Mine saved my life. I hope yours will save yours too. The standing ovation I received wasn't for being brave or strong. It was from people who understood. People who'd ignored their own instincts and paid the price. People who'd trusted when they should have questioned. People who'd survived, like me, and were trying to make sense of it all. After the speech, a young woman approached me. She was maybe 25, with nervous eyes and shaking hands. Mrs. Morgan, my boyfriend does things that make me uncomfortable. Little things. Things I feel guilty for questioning. But listening to you, I think maybe I should trust those feelings. I took her hands in mine. Trust them, please. Those little uncomfortable feelings are your mind trying to protect you. Listen to them. She left with tears in her eyes and determination on her face. I hope she listened. I hope she trusted herself. Now, when people ask me how I survived an attempted murder by my billionaire husband, I tell them the truth. I survived because I trusted myself. Because when my husband brought me a beautiful breakfast and insisted I eat it immediately, something in me said no. And I listened. That's the thing about instincts. They're not always loud or clear. Sometimes they're just a whisper, a small, uncomfortable feeling, a sense that something's not quite right. But if you listen, really listen, they'll save your life. Marcus is in prison now, serving 30 years for trying to kill me. Claudia is serving 25 for helping him plan it. Jennifer is alive and thriving, planning a beautiful wedding. And I'm here, free, successful, and more myself than I've ever been. I kept the breakfast tray, the actual tray Marcus used that morning. It sits in a display case in my office, a reminder, not of how close I came to dying, but of how I chose to live, how I trusted my instincts over politeness, over love, over the desire to believe the best in someone. That breakfast tray, with its elegant serving dishes and careful presentation, represents the moment I chose myself. The moment I decided that my life, my safety, my instincts mattered more than my husband's feelings or expectations. Every time I look at it, I remember, trust yourself. Your instincts are there for a reason. That uncomfortable feeling, that sense that something's wrong, that whisper in your mind saying, don't, listen to it. It might save your life, saved mine, and Jennifer's. And for that, I will be forever grateful to my own inner voice. The one that smelled almonds in my coffee and said no. The one that saw fear in my husband's eyes and questioned it. The one that chose survival over politeness. That voice, that instinct, that gut feeling. It's the most valuable thing any of us possess. More valuable than money, status, or even love. Because without it, without trusting ourselves, we're vulnerable to people who would harm us. People who would poison our breakfast and smile while insisting we eat it. So this is my message, the lesson I learned from surviving my husband's attempt to murder me. Trust yourself. Trust your instincts. Trust that uncomfortable feeling. Because someday, it might be the only thing standing between you and a poisoned breakfast. And when that day comes, I hope you'll remember my story. I hope you'll remember that choosing yourself, trusting yourself, saving yourself, that's not paranoia or overreaction. That's survival. That's how you live to tell the tale. That's how you win.